3 days early. We're very excited to welcome to the show, as promised, a finalist from RuPaul's Drag Race Season 10 and All Stars 5. And I just found out the newly crowned winner of this past weekend's WowWee Awards for Best Comedy Instagram. Congratulations on that. It is the fabulous Queen of Hanukkah, Ms. Cracker. Yay!
Hello!
Hello, Miss Cracker.
It's
Thank
going
you
to
for
be
joining
lit
us.
today.
Oh,
It's
yes,
gonna be
it
lit
is.
like a menorah. So you have a lot going on. We'll start, obviously, because I was talking about Hanukkah. You put out a Hanukkah song and video today with someone who was
Yes.
recently on the show, who has her own holiday song, Jujubee, who
Yeah.
was on Drag Race All Stars 5 with you. So tell me about, there's not that many Hanukkah songs out there. There's, the Adam Sandler one, and after that you start
Right.
to like not think of too many. So this is like an instant Hanukkah classic. Tell us
Yeah.
about it.
Well, I have made my brand, and well, I guess life has branded me as the Jewish queen of RuPaul's Drag Race, of dragdom in general, I guess. And I was thinking had an opportunity to do some holiday singles, and I was like, well, I gotta represent. So this is Hanukkah music for anyone that loves Hanukkah. You do not have to be a Jewish girl. You can be a shiksa to enjoy to enjoy this music. Basically anyone that appreciates friendship will appreciate 8 Days of You, which came out today.
And how did you choose Jujubee as your friendship duet?
Oh, well, Jujubee and I became like soulmates on when we were on the set of All Stars 5. And she was so calm all the time about everything, especially in a situation where so many people were panicked. It was just fascinating to watch her work. Like, she would take like 2-hour long naps in the middle of challenges. And I was just like, how is she so goddamn
Valium.
calm? Yeah. And I was like, what is it? And it's a pill. Exactly. If it's a pill, I want it. So I just sort of fell in love with the juju magic, and the feeling was mutual. It just, we were like, we need to make a song that celebrates our weird love, because we like pick each other's noses and stuff like that, and just like we're just like very intimate friends. So we're like, we have to make this into a song, and so we did.
When did you first conceptualize it? When you said you were given the opportunity to do it, was that because did someone else approach you, say you should do this, or was it your idea from the beginning?
Well, we were kind of thinking about it together in August, and we're like, are we gonna do this? And we ended up. I was sitting out on a porch upstate in upstate New York. So I was sitting out there on the porch, and I was like, started writing out what the idea was, and I was just like, I want to take all the weird things about our friendship and put them into a song, and so
Aww.
I did.
And was
we
it
wrote
lyrical?
it together.
Oh, you did write it together. So you collaborated on the lyrics.
Yeah.
And musically, I'm wondering what you were inspired by, because it's very much got that feel of like the Beach Boys or Phil Spector or like Jackson 5, like those classic kind of like 60s, 70s Christmas songs. Is that was what you were drawing from?
That's exactly what our inspiration was. And we were thinking about that. And we were thinking about the fact that there's so much like fierce drag music out there, and we wanted to make something a little retro and that had some heart to it. I as a queen, I appreciate a vintage feel, and I think that comes through in the music too.
Is that what you grew up on musically in general, or are you just applying it to the holiday song?
I grew up on Joan Baez and Bob Dylan. That's what
Bob Dylan just sold everything.
Exactly. Just sold it all for, what was it, $300 million?
That's what we think.
It's valued at $300 million.
Valued at $300 million.
He probably got a good chunk of change.
Probably no less.
For that.
Probably no less.
But I'm curious about the message. The song is about friendship, and I was talking about this actually with Juju when she was on and talked about her holiday song. Is the idea of chosen family and because for a lot of people in the LGBTQ plus community. Sometimes particularly this year, obviously, but the holidays can be hard. Some people have supportive family to go home to for the holidays, but some really do not. So I was curious about whether this song being about friendship was sort of about, your chosen family.
Well, for
One's chosen
me,
family.
I'm a
Mhm.
little different. I believe that there's a word for friends and there's a word for family, and that those words are separate for a reason, because they're different things, and you can't choose your family. You can't have a chosen family. You have your friends and you have your family, and if your family, uh, isn't part of your life, then you don't have a family, and that's fine. You have your friends, and I think that's something really beautiful to celebrate. And the reason I like to think about it that way is because I think, like, you know um, you look at someone like Juju, that's a person that I've chosen. We don't have the bonds of blood, so we really have to appreciate each other in order to keep what we have alive. Your family, whether you like them or not, like, they are part of your history, and oftentimes you find yourself stuck with them. So I would never want to curse a friend by calling them family.
Does does Juju
Well,
live near
that's
you?
what you're.
Is she
I'm dying.
is Juju in New York?
I think Juju's in
Juju is in
Boston, right?
Boston. Yeah,
Oh,
she's in Boston,
that's too far.
which it took me forever to realize. For the longest time, I was convinced she lived in LA. She kept having to be like, "Yeah, remember that I'm not. I'm on, like, literally a few hours drive from you."
Why did
So
you
yeah,
think she
she was
lived in?
able to come down for the. Oh, because I was like, she's such a fabulous performer. I'm like, there's no way she doesn't live in LA. You know what I mean? Like that. I was like,
Yeah,
she's
agreed.
a star. Yeah. But
Well,
yeah, no. So she lives in Boston. She was able to come down for the recording and for the music video. It's really great.
I do want to ask you, because we were talking about family, whether you use the term chosen family or not. There's another
Yeah.
holiday song you have coming out this year, or this week, I should
Yes.
say, that is sort of about what you were talking about,
Yeah.
being stuck with family, or like, family strife at the holidays in a comical
Yeah.
way. It's called Get Me the Fuck Out of Here. Is that what it's called?
Exactly.
Mm,
That's
Tell us
right.
about that song.
mm,
Yeah,
insightful.
that song, when you are at a family gathering and you walk into the bathroom, not because you have to use it, but because you need to take a goddamn breath.
Mhm.
This song is all about that moment, when you are just like, get me the fuck out of here. And I think, especially for people that love their families very much, I think this is a song that will strike a chord, because you love your family so much and you also just want to get away. So yeah, that's what Get Me the Fuck Out of Here is all about.
Have we had this experience
So,
this year yet, Miss Cracker?
Oh no, luckily I've been saved by COVID.
Yeah.
well, you mentioned at
Luckily
the
the
top
entire
of
world is falling apart.
So you are
well,
you are safe with your satine.
Yeah, exactly, safe and satin.
Mhm.
you mentioned at the top of the show that, when we were talking about the fact that you have this Hanukkah song out, that your brand is that you are the Jewish queen. And you said something in an interview I saw where you were talking about how you wished you'd had a Jewish queer role model as a kid, someone like
Yeah.
yourself, and which I thought was interesting. So I'd love for you to talk about, why that is. That something that was important for you to be now for your Jewish fans or for Jewish kids growing up? Do you have stories of them saying thank you for being, the
Yeah.
Hanukkah queen?
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that I hear most often. When I look at my meet and greets, like where I am meeting and greeting fans before or after a show, I'll look down the line and it's all mothers and daughters, and they're mostly Jewish mothers and daughters. You know what I mean? And a lot of them will say, like, it's so important for us to have a Jewish figure out there being visible and being proud. It's not even about a role model. It's just someone showing you that you can be proud of being Jewish, and you can associate being a Jewish girl with being a beautiful woman. And yeah, that's really my most, like, my favorite part of doing this is hearing that, because yeah, like you said, that's something that I didn't have when I was growing up. I didn't have someone to show me that pride and sense of beauty in Judaism.
Was there someone that you turned to that wasn't directly involved in the community that you found inspiration or pride from?
Like, I guess when I I had so many idols
Mhm.
growing up, but
Go on.
like, yeah, when I think that, you know, one of the humorists that really caught me was Sarah Silverman,
Oh, yeah.
because she would always say, you know, like, I'm you know, a young, hot, for a Jewish girl comedian, and I would always be like, yes, and that would always make me so happy.
She had a holiday
Um,
song, "Give the Jew Girl Toys." Do you remember that song? It was
yes,
like telling
yes,
Santa, like, "Hey, why don't you give us Jewish kids toys?" I
yeah,
remember that.
absolutely,
I
yeah.
found on her and her sister once at a coffee shop for her characters on Bob's Burgers.
Oh,
Oh,
They both
wow.
walked. The sisters both walked by me, so I was excited because they play these two. The sisters play these two brothers on the show. I don't know if you're
I did
familiar
not
with
know
that.
that.
Yes, and so they were together, and I couldn't restrain myself, and I'm like, I love it, your little characters, and they're like, why don't talk to us?
Yeah, it's impossible not to.
Did
Ignore
you
me.
have a bat mitzvah growing up, Miss Cracker? Did you?
No, I didn't. By the
Aw.
time that it was time for me to have my bat mitzvah, I was already wandered into the cultural realms and not the religious realms of the faith, which is something, you know, I'm sad about. What my one of my best friends, Foster, she was bat mitzvahed, and I always am envious of her knowledge and her ability to read Hebrew, and you know,
Oh wow.
yeah.
Now
Because I was gonna
you
say,
speak several languages, correct?
I do speak several languages. I speak French, I speak Wolof, and I speak this this kind of English, whatever this
That
kind
is
is. Yeah,
wildly impressive.
the Queen's English, if you will.
Now the French. Where did you learn the French?
I learned that, you know, some in school, some from living with my Moroccan roommates for like 5 years, and
Wow.
I picked it up in different places. And then I took a lot of lessons before I started traveling. Took a lot of private lessons in French so that I could brush up.
Will you do some French shows?
I've done
Mm.
some shows in Paris.
Ah,
And that was a lot of fun. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to be able to put my language to use in Paris, even though I understand West African French better than I understand Parisian
Parisian.
French. Yeah,
can
Wow.
you lip
because
sync in French? Can you lip sync to a French
oh,
song?
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay,
I
so we
love
have
good
Piaf
Edith
or
Piaf.
something?
yeah,
Yeah, of course. Yes. I mean, because
Awesome.
that's what Americans know.
Plastic
Yeah, because I
Bertrand.
guess a lot of the other French artists like Daft Punk or Justice, they don't sing in French. They sing, or
Yeah,
Phoenix, they sing in English. So that's interesting.
yeah.
Well, since we're talking about a little bit of pop, before we go to break, I do want to talk about your podcast, She's a Woman, but you had some very fierce women on your season of RuPaul's Drag Race season 10. I think it was like the most musical season in terms of the judges and guests that were on. And I'd
Yeah.
love to sort of, I mean, it's crazy. It was like the Grammys, all the people that were on your show. So I'd love to do a lightning round of get into some of the people that were on it. For instance, Courtney Love was on your season.
Oh wow, I completely spaced that.
Whoa.
You
So you probably did not interact much with Courtney Love if you forgot about that, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, she must have been behind the judges panel.
Okay. Well, I remember. Okay, let me just do a lightning round. See if you have any. What memories do you have of when Christina Aguilera was the judge on the premiere and sort of like surprised you guys?
I honestly thought that was Pheromone. I honestly thought that was the drag queen Pheromone. She was such a sweetheart. She was nothing but sweet, and she came and spent so much time with us backstage. It was amazing.
What was Halsey like?
I think behind the judges panel mostly. Yeah.
Okay, let me just rattle off the names and say if you know any of these. Like I said, this was like the Grammys, along with the artists that I just mentioned. Some of the other people that were on your season of RuPaul's Drag
Wasn't
Race.
Shania Twain on mine?
Shania Twain, Lizzo,
Lizzo was
Ashanti as
great.
well. What was Lizzo like?
Lizzo was just great. She is such a comedian and has such powerhouse energy. And I think she hadn't even yet reached her pinnacle of power at when she was on season 10, but she was such a fucking presence. You could see that she was going to become like a mega star, even though she was already a star at that point.
Absolutely. What did you lip sync to in that season?
I lip synced to was it Vanity 6, Caitlin? Yeah.
You did. You lip synced to Nasty by Vanity 6.
Nasty.
Is
yeah,
that
Nasty Girl.
How does
That
that
was
go?
a
Is that
moment.
nasty girl? Don't mean.
Do you
No,
think
is
I'm
that-
a nasty
Tonight, I'm
girl?
living in a fantasy. Oh, in a nasty world.
Oh,
Sounds
yeah.
like-
Let her in a nasty
yeah.
world.
That was a moment.
Yeah.
That was a moment. What's your favorite songs to lip sync to, like in your own show?
Oh, in my own show, I love Gloria Gaynor. I love I Will Survive. I love anything Amy Winehouse.
Mm.
I love a Bjork moment. I love yeah.
Which Bjork?
I cover.
Which Bjork do you lip sync?
I love It's Oh So Quiet.
Okay, it's got to be Oh So Quiet. I mean, you just
Yeah,
got to shake it to
It's
Oh So Quiet.
so great. Yeah, it's such a
That
wonderful
is a
song.
good moment. But it's do you
Björk.
what,
Mm.
what do you
Bjork
get
it.
out of doing your own music though that you don't get out of lip syncing to someone else?
Telling a story, telling my story, which is like the whole goal of my drag, I guess, is to be able to tell my own story. And I've done it through making a patchwork quilt of other people's music. And it's nice to, because I write all the lyrics for my songs, and it feels so powerful to just hear your own life in music. And that's something that not everyone gets. And it's an experience I'm really lucky to have.
Well, I definitely want to talk more about the music you're doing, but before we talk about that, you were talking about your vintage style and that sort of inspired the new song. What were, when you first got into drag, who were the we talked about some of your musical influences, but who were some of your style influences that influenced the way you're presented to us now in front of the sateen?
Oh my God. I mean, my drag mother was Bob the drag queen.
Yay.
But
Bob's been on
she
the
was-
show.
Yeah, certainly not a style influence. God. I think my biggest style influence would be my co-pilot, Caitlin, who has helped me refine sort of what I wanted to present. When I was starting out, I was this sort of Addams Family type queen. I always had black hair and black outfits and this really sort of like crass sense of humor, and like my comedy was always really dark, and so there was sort of like no depth to anything because it was all sort of dark and cloudy and a big fu, and so Caitlin like introduced me to wearing pink and fluff and sort of providing a counterpoint to the sense of humor. And then that added a depth to the character, because she's just like this happy, pretty Barbie with a foul mouth. And that's what made the comedy, I think. That's what made it work.
Can you tell us?
So I'd say
Caitlin is, who's Caitlin in your life?
Caitlin is I always say she's my co-pilot because she manages all my social media, my calendar, and sort of like the vision going forward for Ms. Cracker Incorporated.
And when did you meet her?
I met her in 2015 by accident on the street.
Huh?
How, and what was the accident?
The accident was she was looking for another drag show. She was asking me where she could find a drag show, and I was like, well, I'm doing one. Do you want to
right here? Do you want to come
to that?
And did she come?
No.
Oh, you could hijack her from her original drag show. Who did she go see
come.
instead? What inferior show
Bob
did
the
she go
drag
see?
queen instead.
Wait, she went to see Bob instead. Were you friends with Bob at the time?
Yes, yeah, she went to see Bob instead. So
how but it all worked out. But how did you become friends with Bob? Because Bob is your drag mother, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
Bob sort of was your
That's right.
entry point, and Bob's been on the show with Davey and I before. What how did that friendship start?
I mean, we met by accident on the street, in
all right,
Man, I
Miss
should walk
Cracker,
on
you're
the
making
street
all
more.
this up.
I mean, no, we met on the street and in a snowstorm, and she was struggling home with a bookshelf, and I offered to help her, and the rest is history.
In New York?
Yeah,
Had you been doing
up
Oh
on.
drag
my God.
at that point?
I had never done drag in my life, nor had
Get
I ever
out.
wanted to.
You
Yeah,
didn't even
no.
want to.
No, she introduced me to drag. She forced me to do drag. She nagged me for like 6 months
Had you
to do it.
performed in any
Yeah.
aspect before?
Yeah, I had done experimental theater before. I had done
Okay.
serious stuff. I hadn't done drag.
When you say experimental
Um,
theater, do you mean like performance art, Dada type?
yeah, exactly. That's what
Oh,
I was doing at the
okay.
time.
Like theater of the
Yeah.
absurd, like
Yeah, theater cruelty,
yeah,
Artaud,
Arto, yeah.
and Grotowski and
Mm-hmm.
all of that. And so yeah, I was a pretty serious like uh theater person, but not in the sense of Broadway. So I wouldn't consider myself a theater queen, because the theater that I was involved in was very different.
Right.
So yeah,
Were you doing that in Manhattan or were you doing it in?
I was doing that all over. I was based in Manhattan, but I was traveling the country doing that.
Did you have, what was
At
your troupe?
various
Did you have a
festivals.
troupe?
It was called the Collapsible Poetics Theater, and
What was
yeah.
the reference? Was that a reference? The collapsible.
Not that I know of. I didn't run it, so
Oh,
if there
okay.
was one, I didn't understand it.
Oh, okay. Whoa. Well, that's really interesting. Have you ever heard of Comb
Wow.
or Throbbing Gristle?
No.
Okay, we won't go down that.
So that was the background you were in, and you say you
Yeah.
didn't want to do drag. So
No.
why didn't you want to? Why was that not something that appealed to you when Bob first was sort of foisting it upon you?
I just never had any interest in doing it before. I was there. There's so many queer boys that had the story of like, oh, always used to wear a towel around my head as a wig, or I always used to try on my mom's heels, or that just wasn't me for whatever reason. And I never identified with that. And it really took Bob sitting me down in a chair and painting my face and putting me in a dress for me to realize like, oh my God, this is something that I want to do. And that's when I fell in love, when I was actually in it. So yeah, I mean, which is such a different thing. That's how I was introduced to drag. I had never heard of anything called RuPaul's Drag Race.
Okay.
And it's so many queens that come up today came up learning about drag from RuPaul's Drag Race. I'd never heard of such a thing. And it was like only in its like third or fourth season at that time.
It took maybe season 4, the Sharon Needles season is when it started to, and then season 5 was the season with Alaska
Yeah.
that really
it take-
became like this thing.
Was it difficult for you emotionally to go from performing in Dada and like Artaud influence type performances to do something more playful? Was that like emotionally? I
Oh
enjoy
no,
both.
because it's all about mocking things.
Of course.
And
Yeah.
so yeah, it's all about mocking things. It's all about mocking the world. And so that I got right away, and that's something that I loved right away.
Did you look back? Okay, so having not grown up with queen culture and queen influence, and being unfamiliar with RuPaul's Drag Race, for instance, which is a very modern version of it, did you go back and get into queens of the past? Were you a John Waters fan? I bring that up because Divine being my introduction into the drag world.
Same,
Yeah.
mine as well.
Yeah, I went back and I soaked up the history, and the history of cross-dressing in theater, and the history of drag as an art form, and where it comes from, the history of drag where I live in Harlem, and drag performance. And yeah, I absorbed it after the fact, but it was something I had been just like sort of blissfully unaware of, except for a few Nan Golden photographs that I saw in high school. I think that's pretty much it.
Who had the Nan Golden photographs?
Huh?
Where were the Nan Golden photographs?
Oh, I was taking a photography class, and one of the books was a Nan Golden collection. And
wow, that's in Seattle, the high school?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they just had some of her famous images, and one of them was Misty and Jimmy Paulette in a taxi cab, and I was like, what is this?
Hello.
Yeah.
So when Bob sat you down that fateful day and painted you up, what did you look like when you saw yourself? You said it was this big moment for you that turned you into someone who loved drag.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about how you looked when you saw your reflection staring back at you in drag?
I mean, I looked like Amy Winehouse for all intents and purposes, like I really
Right.
did. I looked a little bit of a mess in retrospect, but at the time, you know, I just felt like I was a full woman. And I maintain that delusion today.
What was your first performance in public? Like, you know, whether it was singing or lip syncing or whatever, like
It was
in
lip syncing. Yeah. It was lip
and
syncing.
to
It was at a bar called Excess, and it was Christina Aguilera, Something Got a Hold on Me.
I mentioned how at the premiere episode of your season, season 10 of RuPaul's Drag Race, she was the surprise guest judge.
Yeah.
Did you tell her that?
You know what? I don't think I did. I don't think it even occurred to me. But I remember thinking, you know, Bob always used to say that if I had a drag voice, it was probably Christina Aguilera's, because I used to perform to her all the time. So I should have told her, but I was verklempt, you know, because she's so she's such a star. You know, you can barely open your mouth.
So tell us about that performance, that when you lip synced to Christina for the first time, you know, how did it go over? Were you like, okay, now I want to totally do this?
I remember it was just, I was wearing this like blue polyester dress with a hot pink bra and a big Amy Winehouse wig. And so I did this song, and I danced so hard that my dress unzipped and my sock tits came out. And
happens to the best of us.
I remember I had brought this guy that I was just so in love with at that time. And I remember being like, watch this. I just did my first performance. It was a complete disaster. And I was just, I was just horrified.
Was he nice?
But oh yeah, he was nice. You know, he watched the show, and then we rode the train uptown and then went our separate ways.
Oh no.
But yeah.
Now where is he?
But
now he's calling Miss Cracker, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I wonder where he is now. He was an actor, and he had been in a couple of indie films, and I remember thinking like, I'm gonna be a star just like him.
Well, you were right.
You were right.
Yeah.
You're right.
That wasn't untrue. Well, did you, obviously maybe it didn't go exactly as you had hoped, but in general, when did you realize this was something you wanted to do?
I think it was the failure. I think it was the failure of the first performance that made me want to do it again until I could get it perfect, you know? And I think that the bulk of my career has just been trying to get it perfect. And every time I do something, it's like not perfect yet. And I keep pushing to make it perfect. And I guess, you know, I don't know what you find at the end of that road.
So how long was it between when you had this semi-accidental entry into the world of drag, and then you auditioned for, you know, the Olympics of drag, which is like RuPaul's Drag Race?
It must have been 5 years later before
that's not that long. It's not that long.
Yeah, 5 years later before I auditioned the first time.
How that happened? How did you decide to do that? Did someone bring you in? Did they ask for you?
No, one of my friends just was like, you should audition, and I'll do the tape. And so I was kind of like, you know, in a friendly way, I was kind of peer pressured into it. I didn't really know what I was doing or who I was at that time yet, you know.
And it starts with an audition tape, and then callbacks. I
want to know about this tape.
Yeah, what is the? Oh, yeah, that's a good question.
My first tape was a mess. You know, it wasn't. Just because I didn't know who I was, and then I didn't make it, and then I think either the next year or the year after that, I tried again, and this time it was with Caitlin. She shot the video, and we plotted the whole thing. We edited it together on iMovie. Yes. And yeah, that was the one that got me in. Yeah.
And were there any contestants besides Bob, of course? I assume this was after Bob had won season 8. Were there any contestants that you looked at? Did you study up on past seasons to get inspiration or to know kind of like how to get on the show?
I mean, I watched the show a lot, but I always thought that I could get on with my own character and who I was. And I don't mean my character as in like someone I was playing, but my own personal integrity and humanity as a human being. And I thought that I could just be myself and get on, and I wasn't wrong, I guess. I never studied other queens, and I like do it less and less.
Now they study you. They study you. And look at you now. Before the break, we were hearing a little bit of a song of yours called She's a Woman. And that's also the title of a new podcast that I believe you're a busy woman. That also debuted today along with the song 8 Days of You. And I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet, but it sounds pretty fascinating because it's all about you speaking with incredible women from different walks of life. So I would love to hear more about what this podcast is about.
Yeah, well, I toured with this show called American Woman, and that was all about feminism and what we can do to be better allies to women. And as part of that, I interviewed a lot of really incredible women about their lives and their work. And I was like, God, this is so fascinating. I want to keep doing this forever. And so She's a Woman, the podcast, is kind of my excuse to do that. And we have talked to some really, truly incredible people and like celebrities and non. And it's really fascinating. Every week, we give you a little bit of good news torn from the headlines to like whet your appetite for the episode. And then we go dive into an interview with an amazing woman. And I have to tell you that I've learned something from every single interview. Like it's just an incredible experience.
How many episodes have you tracked so far?
We have done like 6 episodes so far. And
6 ready to go.
Yeah, 6 ready to go, which yeah, at first I was like, oh, I want to release this as soon as possible, but I'm glad we have a bank with the holidays coming up.
Who are some of the women, the celebrity women, or women in general that you can tell us about that you've already recorded or that we can hear now?
Well, in the first episode, which was released today, we talked to Janine Cook, and she is a bookstore owner from Philadelphia. She has a place called Harriet's Bookshop. And it is a bookshop that features women, and particularly women of color. And it is, you'd think that, oh, you can't open a bookshop anymore, let alone a bookshop that features only women, right?
We were just talking about that, actually, about a friend of mine who opened a bookshop.
Yeah, it's like, especially, since like 2006, you've seen like the entire publishing industry collapse. So it's just like so many people were telling her that it wasn't possible, and she was telling herself that it wasn't possible. And then she opened this bookstore, and the community wrapped their arms around it, and she hasn't been able to keep herself any books on her shelves. Like she's just been selling out again and again. And it's a really amazing story. The way that she has been embraced by the community. And then anytime someone, because people do target her with hate, as will happen when you are a woman that stands up and speaks out. And every time that happens, she finds a really beautiful way of responding with like performance art protests. And she's a real inspiration. And she's someone that has never understood the word no. She's gonna follow her dream, and I think it's really a beautiful story.
Did you reach out to her? Do you reach out to your guests? And
yeah,
that's how you find all of your.
Yeah, we reached out to her. My co-pilot Caitlin heard about her and told me the story, and I was like, oh, we are gonna get her on the podcast. And as soon as we did the interview, I was like, oh, this is our in fact, we should send her the link to the podcast. But we're like, this person epitomizes everything that we want to do with this podcast.
So she
yeah.
debuted.
She was the debut guest.
And what's
Anyone else?
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, who else you got?
We have Kimberly Drew, who is an artist and curator and a writer here in New York, and who has done the social media for the Met Museum. And we have the hosts of Scissoring Isn't a Thing, which is an amazing podcast. We have one celebrity guest that's coming up, but I don't want to jinx it because we're about to interview her next week.
Haven't done it yet.
So yes, we're very, very excited. Like I personally am just like bursting at the seams to.
I can't wait to find out who it is. I hope
Yeah.
it all works out. I can't wait to listen. I think
Yeah.
it's really interesting. Can you talk a little bit about sort of the cross section of feminism and drag? Because I don't think actually that's really been. There are so many women, straight women, cis women who, like myself, who love drag and see it as an art form to celebrate. But there hasn't really been a lot of exploration of that Venn diagram of feminism and drag, which is
funny, right? That's a strange thing. I mean, if you have a vast audience of women, and the audience for drag is primarily women, supporting an industry, you would think that the industry would respond with equal support, and that's kind of what I'm trying to answer with this podcast and with some of my shows, saying like, okay, women have been fierce allies to us, especially cis gay men, and it's time for us to turn around. And when you have an allegiance, when you have allies, the love and support is supposed to flow both ways, right? So I think that's what I'm trying to do, and I'm hoping that will become even more a part of drag. I think it was in season 12 that they finally had all female guests for the makeover episode, and because for those who may not be familiar, like there's always an episode where the queens in the contest make over a group of guests, and it was all women this time, and it was there was controversy.
I should have been on that episode. That episode, dude. Where was my?
There was
I would
controversy
have so
about
signed
it.
up to do that.
Yeah, what was the controversy?
Yeah, it was because people were like, oh, should women be, it's a show for gay men, should women be on there, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, it's just proof that people aren't seeing clearly because this show has become a mainstream phenomenon in part through the support of women of all kinds. And so, of course, they deserve a place on the show itself. Yeah.
And for your show, do you have dream guests that have yet to be interviewed?
Oh my God, I would love to interview Nicole Kidman.
Oh yeah.
Wow. Nicole Kidman has been my idol forever. Yeah, she's been my idol since I was a little kid.
What was your first Nicole Kidman film?
Oh my God, I think I started with BMX Bandits, which is
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. That's like the old stuff. Yeah. I remember watching Dead Calm and Days of Thunder and Far and Away, and those were like, I have seen every Nicole Kidman movie like 3 times.
Will you?
Wow.
Do you ever don a red wig?
I do occasionally don a red wig. I have been more and more frequently lately, actually.
Would you consider doing Nicole?
I mean, I have. Yeah.
You have? Oh, you have.
Yeah. I
me.
almost did her for for Snatch Game. And she was one of my Snatch Game audition characters.
Oh, that's funny.
But I haven't done a performance as her yet. No.
Who did you do for Snatch Game?
I did Dorothy Parker.
Nice.
And I did Lady Gaga for the All-Star Snatch Game.
Before I let you go, because we're running out of time, I have New Year's Eve plans now, so thank you. There's this big New Year's Eve drag extravaganza that is happening. That is going to be you, BB, Sahara Benet, Ben de la Creme, the Boulet Brothers. Like, what can we expect from this? Because I'm very excited about it. And also,
I
wait,
mean,
there's more coming up, right? There's Alaska, Bob the Drag Queen's part, but Katya, Trixie, Mattel, Peppermint. Wow, the list goes on. It's like 16
yeah.
people. What can we
I
expect?
mean, it's a bunch of top drag queens fighting for attention. And when you have that, do you know what I mean?
Yep.
When you have that,
Ah.
you have a real powerhouse show.
So
That
are
sounds
you
like a
going to
good
be
time.
doing your music at it, or will you be just in a hosting or a comedy capacity? Like, what's
I'm
your
gonna be
involvement?
performing. I'm gonna do comedy. I'm gonna do hosting. I'm gonna do the whole thing. Yeah, it's gonna be. It's gonna be quite a thing.
There are obviously challenges that come from having to do drag from home. You know, I've been watching some of the live
Yeah.
streams and stage it, and even the most recent season of Drag Race had to kind of go from home for the finale. So, like, what
Yep.
in the minute we have left, how do you do drag at home?
How do you do drag at home? You get yourself a couple of ring lights. You raise your skirts and lower your standards. That's
Mhm.
that is how you do drag from home.
But you
You
make
forget
sure,
applause and remember what you started this for, which is attention.
but you make sure you do stay. You don't just do it from the waist up, not just from the nipples up.
Yes, right. You got to do the whole thing, girl.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ms. Cracker. Congratulations, sorry, on the new song. I'm looking forward to the next song that comes out on Thursday and checking out the She's a Woman podcast. It's been an honor to speak with you, and I hope you stay safe out there.